Welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you've set aside a few minutes to spend with us today. In each episode of this podcast, we'll share some of what we're learning in the work we do with kids and families on a daily basis at Daystar Counseling in Nashville, Tennessee. Our goal is to help you care for the kids in your life with a little more understanding, a little more practical help, and a whole lot of hope. So pull up a chair and join us on this journey from our little yellow house to yours.
The Raising Boys and Girls podcast is brought to you in partnership with Minnow. Minnow provides meaningful screen time and shared experiences for families to help you grow in your faith together. Check them out at podcast.gominnow.com. That's podcast.gominno.com.
Nashville singer-songwriter Cindy Morgan is a 2-time Grammy nominee, a 13-time Dove Award winner, and a recipient of the prestigious Songwriter of the Year trophy. Cindy has 21 #1 radio hits to her credit and has penned songs for notable artists including David Archuleta, Vince Gill, India Arie, Rascal Flatts, Amy Grant, Mandisa, Natalie Grant, Michael W. Smith, among many others. From gospel to pop to Americana, Cindy Morgan is an insightful voice across musical genres who has grown to become one of Nashville's acclaimed songwriters and is sure a dear friend of ours. I can't even believe we're sitting here with you on a podcast. Cindy, it is so fun.
I know. I'm so happy.
Me too, to be in the room with you. And we were just talking about, we're going to all fight over how long we've known you, but I win. I've known you the longest. You're my oldest friend in Nashville, 29 years, we realized. It's
Actually,
crazy.
I'm your oldest age-wise.
Yes, chronologically. Yeah. I wouldn't have
Cindy's
said that,
younger.
Melissa, but you feel free.
Well, and I just remember when we met and we were hanging out that you told me about Melissa. We talked about Melissa and I was like, who is this Melissa?
When I started at
who is this
Daystar,
person?
yes.
That's right.
I thought you were going to say we met over a boy that I liked.
Oh,
Because we did.
We did.
Mhm.
What was his name?
I'm not going to say it on a podcast. Are you kidding me?
That's great.
Oh,
Now-
man. I was like, I
Don't
can get her
you
to
say
slip
it either.
up.
Now it's turning to a
know.
different podcast.
I know totally who it is, but don't you dare.
You are
Okay.
a good friend. You have
Yes,
been a
I
good
know. I was thinking as I was driving over here today, I mean, I feel like we could say you're part of the reason we even have a podcast because you are the reason that Melissa and I ever wrote a book.
Yes.
Our first book. We came to visit you in Canada and you were writing a book
Okay.
with Carolyn McCready and Terry
Mhm.
Glaspie
That's
for
right.
Harvest House.
That's right.
Yes, and they were visiting you
Oh, and you guys met.
and we
Yes.
overlapped by one night.
Oh,
and
that's
we started
right.
telling them about Daystar and they said, y'all should write a book about that. And they were serious and we got to write a book. I mean, it was a joke how it kind of fell into our laps, but it's totally all
Wow.
thanks to you. So
Well,
Is
I
she
mean,
getting royalty
I
payments for
just-
that?
Well,
you
there
know,
are
it
no
wasn't
royalty
really
payments
thanks to
for them.
me. It was thanks to
It's funny,
it
David.
was thanks to the overlap. But I'm glad that I was there. So, oh, Carolyn and Terry.
Uh-huh.
I
Oh,
know.
I love
Great.
them.
Mhm.
people,
Are-
yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's so
such a fun,
fun.
long history.
Yeah.
I know. And just so proud to get to sit with you.
Oh man, I'm proud of you guys. I'm so proud of just what you do and what you represent and just how important what you guys do is for parents. For me as a parent, I've just been so blessed and so nurtured by what you guys do. So thank you.
Well, you're so sweet. We're going to talk about some things that you've been doing lately, but I feel like more than any artist I have ever encountered, you like have this amazing way of reinventing yourself and stepping into a million different arenas. And your creativity is just so expansive. I mean, do you have any idea how many songs you've written?
Man, I mean, at this point, most songwriters who write a lot would say, I mean, you're in the thousands at this point. So I'm definitely in the thousands, but you know, most of them probably are bad.
That is not true. That is not
You
true.
know,
We could all throw out our favorite Cindy songs.
You get,
Easy.
you got you only get one good one for every like 100, really good one. But yeah,
Okay, so thousands of songs. How many albums?
I think I'm probably at 12 now,
Wow.
something like that. Yeah.
Is that just you or St. Lola also?
I think that's probably me. I mean, St. Lola, maybe if I add them all up, maybe that is including St. Lola. But yeah.
Unbelievable.
And the other part of your creativity being, I think every time I see you, you have a different instrument in your hand too.
For sure.
It's endless.
Yes.
Like I just think, how many instruments do you play,
Well,
Cindy?
I don't play any of them great. My deal is I feel like every instrument makes you write a different kind of song, and they're all in different tunings, which means that it sounds different when you play it. And you'd write a different song on the banjo than you would on the piano or even the
that
guitar.
makes sense. Yeah.
We don't get that at all.
You know what I mean? That's how my brain works. And I'm very non-traditional in that all my friends that are guitar players tease me because my guitar only has 5 strings, because the high string, I don't like it. I like the more mellow strings, and the high string always messes me up. And so I just take it off. And so, some of my friends call me 5 strings because I only play with 5 strings. But I'm like, but hey, that's what I like. And I'm like, I'm not going to let that be a distraction from me being productive. So I was like, oh, I'll just take it off. But
It's amazing.
But
I didn't know
anyway,
that.
I just find my shortcuts around stuff. But yeah, I love to write on different instruments. But it's Nashville, so there's so many masters of playing different instruments. So I'm definitely a songwriter player in that. I'm not great at any of them, but I enjoy it.
How many books have you written?
Well, not many. So just 2, like Barefoot
Just
on
2.
Barbed Wire. And y'all have written like 10 at this point, but a couple books that are kind of memoirs, and then the children's book. And I did write a couple novellas for a publishing house in Canada.
Unbelievable. And you are always working on something new,
Yes.
which we'll come
projects.
back to that. And one of my favorite stories, which you're just going to have to tell, the movie Song.
That was the
tell
one
that.
I was the most
Please tell
excited
it.
about.
Right. It's funny how I feel like the best things that happen, they come along, when you're really you didn't do anything to make it happen. And you try so hard to make other things happen and nothing happens, then you do nothing and then something really awesome happens. And so was the case. My friend David Prosey, who is a producer for 2020, he's been doing that for years and years. He's just an amazing guy. So he was running in Manhattan that morning, and he had a playlist with some of my songs on it. And he got this call from a woman who is a movie producer. And she said, I'm producing this movie and we need this song for this like turning point. Could you suggest someone? He's like, oh, I know exactly who, because he had just been listening to me. I was, of course, the first person that popped in his head. So then I get this call from this woman in New York who said, we are doing this film with Alec Baldwin and Demi Moore. We need a song in the turning point of the film where the protagonist figures out, yes, I really love this woman and I'm going to change my, way of doing things to make this relationship work. We need a song right there. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll totally try. And then she said, now there are 2 catches. The first catch is that we need it actually in 2 days. And we not only need it in 2 days, but we need a fully produced demo in 2 days. I was like, all right then. And she said, and the other thing is that someone's going to sing this that has actually never recorded a song before. I was like, okay, this is not good. I mean, okay, how's this going to be? She's like, yeah, this is an artist who's always wanted to record a song, but never has. And so this would be his like debut song. And she said, and that person is Robert Redford.
Unbelievable.
What?
I
So,
love that.
yeah.
I love it.
I was like, what universe am I living in? So anyway, so I went home, wrote it, sent her the work tape back same day, booked the session it was a Friday, booked the session the next day, and we recorded it. It's like a big band, kind of that sort of torch song. And then we had to send it up to Robert and his wife, Billy, because they had to give it the thumbs up. They did. And the next thing I know, I'm on an airplane, a couple months later. I remember they were like, okay, you've got to go in there and work with him and like make sure he knows the song. And then I produced his vocal in the studio. And so, but I had to go in the green room and spend quite a lot of time with him, just kind of going over it and
correcting Robert Redford.
or just like, melodically for him, he felt intimidated by everyone that was in the process because they're all, they called in all the cats in New York. There are all these like amazing session jazz players in New York. Philip Phillips played guitar on it, and he was a sweetheart because he was a friend of the music producer guy on the film. But I just remember looking through the little glass door to the green room and seeing him sitting there on the couch going, okay. What am I going to say?
But describe how he looks.
How he is a fine looking man. I'm just going to tell you. He had these like acid wash jeans and this leather jacket on. I mean, he was looking Sundance. I mean, he was looking a really cool haircut, and he looks fantastic. I thought I was going to be in my pants. I was like, this is not real, But when we started talking about Nashville, and he's like, oh, I love Nashville. I really like that city. And he was really great. He was just wonderful. And we had a really good exchange, and I had a good time together. And he did kiss me on the cheek at the end, I'm just going to say.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I might not have washed my face.
I mean, I didn't for a long time. Yeah.
Mary Poppins kissed me on the forehead when I was a little girl, and I didn't wash it for weeks. Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Robert Redford would, I don't know that Robert Redford would trump Mary Poppins.
I'm waiting for mine.
Yeah, you waiting for it? I can see how you would be a Robert Redford man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Is he your dream?
Yeah. His eyes.
Yeah. And the movie is called Blind. The movie's called Blind. And it's kind of based on roughly on the life of Norman Mailer.
Wow.
There's definitely some fiction added, but it's kind of inspired by some parts of the life of Norman Mailer. But
so interesting.
Yeah.
That story is such a picture of your talent.
Yes.
Can you write a song in 48 hours, create a demo, and come coach Robert Redford on some vocals? Cindy, there is such a picture of you.
And here she is with us.
Yes. How fortunate are we?
Well, we do have official things to talk about. We could talk about a million other things for days, but Melissa, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, we're talking about vintage values. And is there one that you think kids struggle with today? Or just one that comes to your mind?
The vintage values, like something that is like an old fashioned kind of concept.
Yes.
Well, if I think about my own kids, I would say quiet time. I would say for the positive side of boredom is something that maybe might be a big thing. I read this article about the connection between boredom and creativity, because your mind, when you're bored, it kind of kicks into this other mode. And that's how you access things in your subconscious and the daydreaming process of like getting into a creative space. I mean, I feel like for my kids, trying to instill in them a desire to want quiet. I grew up with a lot of quiet. If we're talking about vintage values, I guess, my childhood is vintage by now. But I grew up, y'all, in the holler.
Which holler officially?
Well, I mean, it was called Snake Holler. It was down in this holler called Earl's Holler, but everyone called it Snake Holler because there were snakes everywhere.
Oh, goodness.
But, it was this super rustic, tiny cabin, and I was the youngest, and so I was the last one left at home. I had a lot of time alone, and I would go for walks and go in the creek, and that's where I became a writer because we got one channel on the TV and there were no kids to play with. And then my mom traveled, she sang and traveled some. And so a lot of times it was just me and my dad.
And y'all didn't have electricity for a
while. Yeah, that's right. For a while, we didn't have electricity. And so I think that
had really opportunities to be creative.
That's right. But I do think that time to like let my mind wander was a big part of like developing my creativity.
So how do you help your kids to be able to have that time, instill in them that value of having some time?
I can only reference like what I did with Olivia and Savannah.
They're both really creative.
They
in
are.
very different ways.
Yeah, they are. They're both writers. And their dad, of course, is a great writer. And so it's probably in the blood. But also, I never had on television or anything like that in the mornings. I really tried to wait as long as possible until I thought I was going to drop dead from exhaustion. I was like, okay, we're turning the television on. And we also stopped buying toys. We figured out early on in their childhood that they actually never played with the toys. So we only bought things that were interactive, like paper and, things to paint and draw with, or to create, build, because it felt like they were the kind of kids who would get very bored with something that did the work for them. And so they needed to do the work.
That is so great.
Of playing.
The way you put that.
Brilliant.
Love that. Wow.
Love that.
I remember when we were on road trips, we used to drive up to Canada in the summers. That is a 3.5-day trip. And they're young. And it's like, oh man, we cannot start with TV or it's all downhill. They each had a little portable video kind of thing. So what we did was we always started the mornings with nothing, to where it was just looking out the window, daydreaming, conversation. And so that there were a few hours of that, so that they kind of were forced into this kind of state of having to occupy their minds. And then we would kind of graduate to, okay, I'll come back there and I'll read you a book now. And then we'll listen to some music. And then, of course, desperately,
Same thing.
a movie.
Yes.
And so the slow build for me.
Smart.
That's brilliant. Cindy, along those lines, what is one of the issues that you believe is harder about being a parent today that's different from when your parents were raising you?
Man, I guess possibly social media. There have always been bullies. There have always been someone that makes you feel bad about yourself. I definitely feel like the comparison game, I think for adults too, I guess this is probably common knowledge. It's like the comparison game of they always look so beautiful and wow, they've got a makeup channel and I don't have a makeup channel and, just feeling less than because of how we compare ourselves. So I definitely feel like social media is probably a big struggle. The phone is a big struggle, I would say.
In general. Yeah. Out of everyone I know, you have the most fascinating stories from your childhood, period. But just if you were going to think about something as we're talking about all this vintage stuff from your childhood that you wish you could bring back today,
Yeah.
what would it be?
I ended up spending a lot of time with older people because my neighbors were older. Before we moved down on the Holler, we lived in a little neighborhood, a cul-de-sac, as my mother calls it, a culter-sac. But but my mom, Lola. But there were 4 houses in our neighborhood. There were 3 sisters. 2 of them had never married. And then Mr. and Mrs. Ferris were the only married couple. But they were all sisters living in the same little circle with us. And so I just went from house to house. Aunt Addie, Miss Brown, and Miss Ferris, and going to their house. And I think growing up and being really comfortable around older people and actually wanting to hear their stories and wanting to kind of know about their life in the past, I just think that was so instilled in me. Sometimes I think when I'm around young people, they feel quite uncomfortable around older people.
Yeah.
And I love to be around. I guess that my parents instilled that in me, the value of valuing people, maybe not based on their age, but just who they are.
Along that line, was there something, a favorite book or favorite show on the One Channel that you could get?
The One Channel?
Music band.
Charlie Brown. I mean, Charlie Brown Christmas, the best Christmas record ever been made. And every time Linus goes out there with his little blanket and he puts the blanket over his head and he tells the Christmas story and they do the whoo. I'm like, it's like nothing is better than that. Nothing.
I cry every
that.
time.
It's
Do you?
I know.
Yes,
it's like
that
it just
moment.
chokes me up.
I need to watch that with Henry this year.
You need to.
I don't think I've seen
As
it.
soon as this little voice starts speaking the Christmas story,
Good.
I love it. The Raising Boys and Girls podcast is brought to you in partnership with Minnow. Did you know that Minnow has an award-winning children's Bible written by VeggieTales creator Phil Vischer The Minnow Laugh and Grow Bible for Kids is more than a children's Bible storybook. It's a deep, engaging, and whimsical gospel experience. Each Bible story is vividly illustrated, takes just minutes to read, and includes a family connection to encourage readers to learn, talk, and pray together. Find out more at shop.gominnow.com. That's shop.gominno.com. I love what you said about the slow build with offering that space for being bored and daydreaming with kids. Is there anything else that you would encourage parents to consider as you think about just building creativity into kids?
I read a book that was like a psychology book about raising children. It said that some children who are high strung, like Olivia is definitely my type A, very, OCD kind of child and really creative. We used to talk about in our relationship, you and me and Melissa, not to leave you out, David.
Okay.
But when we used to hang out and watch our movies and stuff, like someone was Tigger, someone was Pooh, and someone was Piglet, right?
Out of the three of us,
Yeah.
Don't say it. Don't say it. I'll say it.
Eeyore.
Eeyore.
Oh, no. I say Pooh. I don't say
I
Eeyore.
love you, Cindy.
But I remember that T-shirt you had. You remember that T-shirt you had that had little Eeyore with a little clown over it?
Sissy's called me Eeyore for
I
a
love
while.
that. But anyway, Olivia is definitely Tigger and Piglet. I think she's a little of both. And so this book was saying that when you have a child who is that sort of personality, it's really important to stay calm when they are really stressed. Or just even like children who are creative and who are given to that sort of creativeness or giftedness, that it's really important for them to have a feeling of stability. So, because I'm really emotional, I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, and so is Olivia. And so I feel like I remember in my younger days being really up and really down, and that was difficult. And so I had to get to the point where I had to really figure out how to kind of level out and not be so impacted by my mood swings. So watching Olivia with that, who is like really up and really down, and nurturing her creativity and even just her feeling of safety, I realized that I had to really try. If she was panicking, then I had to be logical and like just really kind of give her that calm energy back. And even Savannah, who is she's more pragmatic, and she is very creative, but she's more of like down to business, I mean, she is my parent in many ways. She's very together.
Yes.
And it's weird because my role with Savannah is so different than my role with Olivia. Because with Savannah, because she is such a strong personality, I have to let her feel like this is, maybe you guys are going to tell me I'm doing the wrong thing.
No, we're not.
But in some ways, I think she quite enjoys being in leadership of me in some ways.
She's a natural
teaching you
leader.
some
Some
things.
things, and some things that she is wise, and she does have wisdom to offer me, and she does see things different than I do. Now, she just turned 18, but she's kind of been that way for a while, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay for her to feel like sometimes she's in charge of me.
Yeah, she is so capable.
She is.
Are there ways specifically, and you've kind of spoken to this, but that you feel like with them being so different, that you've helped kind of draw out each of their creativity? Like what are kind of specific ways?
I feel like encouragement is really important. I remember a moment, Savannah wrote this paper about Atlas, and I think she was in 8th grade. It kind of blew my mind. And at that point, Olivia's older. She's in high school. Her path to like be a screenwriter for Pixar is like a well-worn path. And, she's obsessed with being a screenwriter. And of course, she's about to graduate, and that's what she's getting her degree in. So that hasn't changed. But I remember, and of course, because their father is a writer as well. So Olivia's, of course, following in his footsteps in that way. And she's going to be a writer. And as the younger child, you're already in the shadow of like, oh, well, she's going to do that. So there's a natural inclination, I would think, if I put myself in her shoes to go, well, I can't do that.
Mhm.
And so I remember her reading me that paper and just having this moment of thinking, I need to say something right now to her. And I said, Savannah, just because Olivia wants to be a writer, that does not mean that you can't as well, because you would do something completely different. Your writing would be completely your own. So I feel like just encouraging her to not think that only one person in the family can do that one thing. And so I think in terms of different nurturing for each of them, Savannah, a friend of mine told me she's really strong. And so Savannah, I feel like she feels like she's more close to you if you do a little debating together. And I don't like conflict. And so that was hard for me as a parent to go, oh, I need to push back sometimes with her. And that makes her feel like I'm invested, that I'm asking questions. Whereas Olivia really doesn't respond well to any sort of tough love at all.
Oh.
It's like, it's soft. I got to do the soft parent thing with her. But with Savannah, she likes me to push back.
That makes so much sense to me. Yeah.
Feels
And
like
it's so
such a
discerning
picture
of
of
you.
Yeah, where you know your girls.
Yeah.
You know, and the differences in temperament that bring about a different response from you as a mom.
You can pick up on that pretty good because just recently spending time
Yeah.
with Savannah, and I love talking with her, and I can see what you're saying there, that she invited me in a way to say something different from what she was saying.
Yeah.
So-
Is that right? Oh, that's
But I
cool.
gingerly went that way.
I know.
Uh-huh.
But man, she's a freshman at Lipscomb. And I think it's really wonderful just at this time in her life, because college is such an amazing time to be challenged. What do they say? Like the way the college students go is the way the world goes. And that they so impact culture. And so I think she's really enjoying being around peers, and it's good.
Talking about the girls, we have a lot of memories of being with them Christmas. They were small, or just about every Christmas.
Yes.
We have been together. I'm just so proud of them, and so it's fun to talk about them. But do you have a favorite Christmas memory with the girls?
I have a memory of us. So we were driving to Arizona, and it was right before Christmas. We were spending Christmas in Arizona, and we were driving through New Mexico, and a blizzard hit. And we thought, okay, what do we do? Do we keep going? This is weird. Like, we're in New Mexico and it's starting to snow really hard.
Wow.
Because it went from like nothing to just a downpour. And so we were fortunate in that we pulled off before everyone started pulling off. So we got a room at a Howard Johnson, but it felt like a Hampton Inn. You know what I'm saying? So it was more like a Hampton Inn in that it had the hot breakfast.
Yeah.
It was a nice hojo, but thank the Lord, because it's all there was there. But it was such a blizzard that it completely shut the interstate down. And there was a little tiny Highway 55 diner right beside the hotel. We went and we had dinner. And then that night, we came downstairs and we made snow cream. We got the little like flavor packets from the hotel, the coffee bar. And then we went and got fresh snow. And we made snow cream in the lobby of the Hojo. And the girls built snowmen. And we were like snowed in there for 3 days. And we
Really?
Yeah, we couldn't leave for 3 days. Then finally the diner closed. And then all there was the breakfast bar.
Oh, no.
And so at night, we would come down and like get the peanut butter and jelly and the bread that was hiding in the back pantry of the hotel lobby. But it was so fun. And they built these 2 big snowmen, kind of where people pull up at the hotel. The girls built these 2 welcoming snowmen at the Hojo. So yeah,
what a
so
memory
good.
that
in New
stays with
Mexico,
you.
who would think, you know? So I love that little memory.
As we keep reflecting on Christmas over the years, how do you feel like you pointed the girls back to the true meaning of Christmas?
For the girls and I, we always had a tradition of reading a lot. So we read every day together. I had a beginner's Bible, which I love. And we used that book so much that we finally had to duct tape it together.
Uh-huh.
And so reading was a big part of just our life together. I don't know why it feels like you should read it at Christmas time, but of course, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So we would read that at Christmas time, and I'd bought a big hardback version that had the big pictures in it and the big print. I guess I always loved reading that book to them because of the beautiful allegory, like the scene where Father Christmas comes. And the movie, they didn't do it where they had the big tea, like Father Christmas brings them tea in the book and they all have tea with the beavers. And I don't know. I just love it. We always would go to church on Christmas Eve, going to the candlelight service the night before. It's tough to juggle the gift thing. Like, okay, it isn't really about this, although you want to celebrate like everybody else does. But I think just reading the Christmas story always, we always read that first before we opened the gifts, and trying to do something during the season that was always involving the girls in some sort of charitable or humanitarian act during the season that just reminded them of how blessed they were and how important it is for us to remember those who aren't.
Well, thinking about that and thinking about the holidays coming up, which is just a time that brings up a lot of sorrow for people too. And I mean, I feel like I'm still learning so much about the Enneagram, but it seems like out of all of the numbers that 4s can hold joy and sorrow together better than maybe anyone else, better than a 1 for sure. We don't do 2 things at once. We do 1. But thinking about parents that are listening that might be in this season where it brings up some sorrow for them and they're still needing to have joy with their kids and you living in both places, just would be curious based on who you are and what I know to be true of you, what you would say to parents to encourage them in that space.
Well, when I think back on the Christmas after I lost my dad, there's a melancholy. My personality type, I'm very comfortable with that kind of sadness that has some beauty in it. And so I think imagining parents who are going through a difficult time where maybe they have experienced some loss. With my dad, I just tried to remember the things about him that I loved and that were so life-giving. And I guess that I was always just grateful that I had a father like him in my life for as long as I did, even though it wasn't long enough. You gave me a book years ago, The Prophet. Do you remember that you gave me, The Prophet? He wrote something about that the same knives that carve the lute hold the cool water. So the same well that holds the joy holds the sorrow. The amount of depth that we have for joy is equal to the amount of sorrow we have. So I don't know. I guess the bad news about joy and the amount of joy that you can feel is that it can be matched with sorrow. But I guess I just choose to dwell on the joy with my dad. I choose to dwell on the joy that I had with him and the joy he still gives me.
I love that. I choose to dwell on the joy that he still gives me, even though he's been gone for how many years?
22 years.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a memory of my favorite Christmas with him. And we went into the woods and we found this sweet little Christmas tree. We drug it through the snow and we brought it back to the house. And it was like a Walton's Christmas tree. It wasn't awesome, but it was our tree. And one way that I deal with my sadness for him is I tell my girls stories about him. Like when they were growing up, I tried to tell them a story about him every day, like maybe before bed, so that he was alive in their memory. And that made him alive to me.
Love that. It's so good to hear
I know.
the reflections in the past, but we can't stop our time without asking you, is there a project you're working on right now?
Yeah, actually, I've never done a full Christmas record. I've always contributed Christmas songs on different records, but I have never done a Christmas record. So I'm actually gonna do a Christmas record this year. No, it won't be done, but I'm gonna start this Christmas because I'm like, people always do their Christmas records in June.
Oh.
So I thought, you're not in the mood to do Christmas songs
Right.
in June. So
Oh.
I'm going to start this season. I'm going to start working
I
on it.
love
And you're going
it.
to play one for us today.
I'm going to play one for y'all.
Hey,
So
Cindy, that is
exciting.
awesome. I'm so excited about that.
Me too.
Yay.
We're over the moon that you're going to do a Christmas song. But before we hit that place, we've all had the privilege of sharing a meal with you. And if we had that chance again soon, which we hope we do, and we happen to have tacos, which we love to do on this podcast.
You do?
Yes, we love it.
Oh.
What kind of taco would you love to have?
Oh, fish taco. Fish taco, without question.
Mm.
It's my jam. Love it.
That's
Okay.
great.
We'd love to have that happen. And you can have a fish taco at Christmas too. That's not against the rules.
yeah. And a side of cranberry sauce.
There you go.
Oh,
yeah.
Cindy, thank you. It is just, I mean, always it's
Oh.
a joy to be with you, but it's just a joy to get to share you with our people.
Thank you. Oh, I'm so excited to be on this. I listen to this podcast.
Cindy.
So I'm so excited to be on here.
We still can't believe that we have you here singing. This feels like a beautiful way to usher in the Christmas season. So will you tell us what you're going to sing?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do kind of a melancholy version of What Child Is This? All right. What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping? Who may just greet with anthem sweet while shepherds watch are keeping this is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. So bring him incense, gold and myrrh. Come, peasant king, to own him, the King of kings. Salvation brings, let loving arms enthrone him. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Oh, haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. Sweet little Jesus boy, they made you be born in a manger. Sweet little holy child, and they didn't know who you was. Oh, but this is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son, the babe, the Son,